whole area around Bodhgaya is full of very, very important relics of Buddhist architecture. It's impossible to go to Bodhgaya without actually experiencing the calm, the serenity, the rows of Buddhist monks walking in complete sense of equilibrium and compassion. We were really keen to embody all this history and culture. Our clients, Marasa Hospitality Group, approached us to do a set of hotels for religious tourism. They actually approached us with a bit of a cookie cutter mentality or idea, saying, do a hotel that we can then replicate across places of religious tourism. And the places they've had to offer us was Tirupati, Bodhgaya, Rishikesh, all very varied centers of religion. It was a wonderful journey of kind of philosophically understanding the tenets of Buddhism and then being able to represent them literally in brick and mortar and I would say clay.
The site was nearly 4.5 kilometers from the Mahabodhi temple and very close to the Falgu river. It was low-lying and tended to flood in the monsoons. Even though it was close to the river, it actually offered no external views and so our design needed to be introverted. On the north and the west, it was surrounded by local village houses. On all the other sides, it was surrounded by local paddy fields. The approach road was on the north of the property, and as we entered, we first aligned our public block with all the public functions right near the approach road. We sought to establish an access starting from the entrance canopy of the public block onto a very porous lobby, and from there on, the access proceeded to a very long linear courtyard at the very end of which was a Bodhi tree.
On the left is the reception. Connected to that is library and lounge. Beyond, on the left hand side, is the pool court and the spa block. On the right hand side is the banquet along with the pre-function area. A little further is the cafe with an outdoor seating. Beyond all of this is the back of the house and the kitchen.
From here, the axis turned perpendicular to the courtyard in the east-west direction, where we aligned a long and linear lily pond, overlooking which were our 5 identical residential blocks. The public block was also dotted with small and big other courtyards, and this helped us create a layering of vistas.
Most important things for us was to look at historically the architecture of the area and recognizing that brick had a very, very big role to play. And when you use brick, you use the arch. When you use brick, you use the vault. So those were some of the key elements that we wanted to use, both from the perspective of the history of Buddhism or Buddhist architecture, as well as the materials that were really easily available in the area right now.
Using elements we found at the Mahabodhi temple and a lot of other historic buildings in and around Bodhgaya, we identified arches, bolts, keyhole windows and corbels as elements that we sought to use in our architecture. So we used arches all along our courtyard in a gentle rhythmic manner, alternating sometimes with keyhole windows. We introduced bolts on the cafe, the lobby, the banquet, and also the circulation spaces around the courtyard. Bolts were also added on our residential block on top of the bedrooms. So each residential block had a series of 4 walls. Here is how we used the keyhole windows, alternating them often with arches, with corbels. Corbels were also added at the edge of our roofs. The residential block also had these 4 walls sitting right on top of the guest rooms in a very symmetrical manner. Bodhgaya has a very extreme climate. So optimizing this seasonality, what we thought of doing is keeping our corridors, verandahs and lobby spaces completely non-air conditioned. Our residential blocks are aligned north-south. They were the only blocks that were completely air-conditioned.
So the verandas played a very important role. And if you notice, these verandas throughout, as well as the public spaces, have these pitched roofs. And the pitched roofs have multiple layers of country tiles. And we really saw these country tiles as a huge opportunity for the project to participate and connect to the local vocabulary as well as the local economy in a way.
The nature of pathways and corridors also meant the transition from inside to outside was really very fluid. So the corridors flow very easily into courtyards and spaces outside. The material of the outer landscape, therefore, is in continuation with the inner finishes, which is tones of pink and beige. We chose dhulpur as a material that, in a way, goes everywhere on spaces on the site. We met with 2 huge challenges. One was that MEP consultant said that brick in a way was not as efficient as AAC as a material in keeping air conditioning loads low. In this case, we chose the greener of the 2, which is AAC. Our arches and the corbels that we created in the public space, we retained the use of brick because those were non-air conditioned spaces. We discovered that in 2016, with the codes changing, the code for earthquake resistance in our country made it extremely difficult, almost impossible to build this vault out of brick. We decided to construct our vaults in RCC, in concrete, staining the concrete to a light brick tone to sort of stay with the memory of brick that we began with. We took the pigments to our site using the golden sand that was available at site. We worked out a ratio, and after a lot of different samples were tried, we settled on this one to create our vaults. Our site was planted with very lush vegetation. Water was always an issue on this site because it was low-lying. We built very large soak pits that dot the site. We worked with swales that run all across this perimeter of the site, carrying the rainwater gently, percolating it slowly into the earth. But we also designed a holding pond, which becomes a landscape feature at site, but its function essentially is to be an emergency holding tank of sorts in the event of very heavy rainfall. There are interesting steps that people can sit around and be around. On the bridges that one needs to take in order to cross the lily pond and walk into the residential blocks are little signages that are also bollards all rolled into one.
For the interior spaces, a strong iconography guides the design. This search led us to connecting with Supriya Rai. She's the head of Buddhist studies at Somaya Institute. She happily allowed us to access her extensive library, and that really started this extensive exercise of scanning through lots and lots of Buddhist books for iconography, symbology, until we landed upon this principle of Vajradhatu Mandala. A Vajradhatu Mandala is a symbolic representation of a palace. It's divided into these 5 houses of Dhyani Buddhas, and each house is represented by its own mudra, a color, a cardinal direction, and several attributes. The 5 houses are associated with each mudra. We have Varada, which was our cafe. We had Bhumi Sparsha, which was our pool court. We had Abhaya, which became our reception. Dharma Chakra Mudra, which was our library and lounge. And finally, Dhyan Mudra, that became our banquet. That really became the biggest guiding factor for designing the interior spaces. For example, the Bhumi Sparsha Mudra, which is our pool court, it also is symbolic of Buddha's enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, which was witnessed by the earth. Our spa reflects the side of connecting man and nature. That's our spa mood board. The color for this particular mudra was blue, so we played with these 2 shades of blue. This being a spa, I think the furnishings needed to be something that was very easy in terms of upkeep. We also played around a little bit with the symbology of the Vajra and turned that into a little motif like this, which got hand painted as the backdrop. Most of the furniture had the warmth of the wood. The season winter came in through this sort of, a dried tree symbol, which again was hand painted in the spa guest rooms. We worked with Rachita Sareen from Marasa Design. She's our graphic consultant for this project. And on both sides of the wall, you have the same attributes carved and CNC cut into Dholpur stone. In most of the indoor spaces, we have a combination of tiles and marble, whereas in the courtyard, we have used Dholpur. From the indoor space to the corridor to the courtyard, one experiences just the soft beiges basically rolling over. We worked with some wonderful contributors, from Rachita, who did our graphic design, to Sameer, who did all of our decorative lighting. Each of our decorative light fixture was custom made, to the entire interior design team worked tirelessly through the entire phase of the project, to eventually Niveditaa, who photographed the hotel so beautifully. Everything else that we did in terms of the materiality, the tone of the wood, the furnishings, was to support the terracotta. So the furnishings were basically a linen and a cotton blend of soft beiges. The floor was a lighter laminated wooden floor. Most of the furniture in the room is carved out of hardwood.
Another big takeaway from the project was working with the local artisans, the craftsmen, and the labor at site to literally craft elements such as colored concrete, work with the local potters to create those terracotta tiles that have gone on top of the roof, to work with the masons from Bengal to create the corbels, the technical learning, as well as the joy of sheer crafting all of these elements was an amazing takeaway for this project.
It's been very heartening to see people reacting to the project. There were 2 major factors for us. One was memory and the other was emotion. And we really wanted to use the idea of memory, of arches and things that people could relate to on the Buddhist trail, and evoke emotion using memory. And I think the third thing by doing that has been timelessness. So memory, emotion, and timelessness are some of the things that we feel this project definitely evokes.